For over 100 years, we told ourselves a simple, comfortable story. A story about us, Homo sapiens, the chosen ones. We were the species that mastered fire, created art, developed language, and thought complex thoughts. Our evolutionary cousins, the Neanderthals, they were the brutish, grunting failures who stumbled through Ice Age Europe before politely getting out of our way. It was a nice story. It made us feel special, and it was completely wrong. The story of the real Neanderthals begins not with bones, but with stones, at a place called Boxgrove, in southern England. For decades, archaeologists knew this site was old, 500,000 years old, and home to an early human species. They found beautifully crafted hand axes, but these fit the old narrative, primitive tools for primitive people. But in late 2025, a team led by Dr. Susan Everett decided to look again, this time with new technology. They didn't just look at the obvious tools, they looked at everything, every tiny fragment of stone, every strange discoloration in the dirt, and that's when they found it. Fool's gold. Iron pyrite, gleaming in the sediment right next to those flint tools. At first, it seemed random, but the placement was too perfect, too deliberate. Under the microscope, the pyrites showed tiny, consistent scratches, the kind you only get when you strike one hard mineral against another, over and over again. Everett's team proposed something that made the entire archaeological world hold its breath. They claimed that the ancient humans at this site, the ancestors of Neanderthals, were making fire. Not by chance, but on purpose, using a flint and pyrite strike-alike kit. And they were doing it for 100,000 years ago. Let that sink in. This was 350,000 years earlier than anyone thought deliberate firemaking had ever happened on Earth. The implications were staggering. To carry flint and pyrite together means you're planning for the future. You're thinking, I'm going to need a fire later, so I'd better bring my tools. The technique itself, striking flint on pyrite to create a spark, isn't something you're born knowing. It has to be taught. It has to be passed down from one generation to the next. This implies a culture, a community capable of learning and teaching. And with fire, you change everything. You have warmth, you have light in the darkness, you have protection from predators, and you have a way to cook food, making it safer and more nutritious. A group with controlled fire doesn't just live in the world, they begin to master it. The Boxgrove discovery didn't just push back a date on a timeline. It completely shattered our understanding of who was capable of what and when. The abilities we once thought made us uniquely human, foresight, complex tool use, control over our environments, suddenly looked a lot more common, and fire was just the beginning. With this new perspective, archaeologists started re-examining old evidence. Take the famous spears from Exegeningen, Germany. These were once attributed to an earlier human species, but a revolutionary new dating technique placed them at 200,000 years ago, right in the heart of Neanderthal territory. And these were not just pointy sticks. They were masterpieces of engineering. The makers had carefully selected spruce wood for its straight grain, stripped the bark, and balanced the spear perfectly, placing the center of gravity exactly 1/3 from the tip, the optimal design for a throwing weapon. This wasn't a lucky accident. It was advanced woodworking. And what were they hunting with, these precision weapons? The animal bones found at the site tell a story of incredible skill and coordination. We're talking about horses, deer, and even the occasional rhino. The patterns in the bone piles suggest entire herds were driven into ambush traps and then butchered with ruthless efficiency. One site contained the remains of at least 20 horses, all processed in the same systematic way. The lead researcher, Thomas Terberger, concluded that these hunts must have been wholly collaborative and group-minded efforts: collaboration, planning, communication. Suddenly, these words were being used to describe Neanderthals, not as a controversial theory, but as the only logical conclusion the evidence allowed. The brutish caveman was being replaced by the master hunter, but perhaps the most profound, most intimate glimpse into the Neanderthal world came from something far more delicate than spears or fire starters. It came from the claws of eagles. At a site called Krapina in Croatia, archaeologists found 8 white-tailed eagle talons dating back 130,000 years. They showed clear-cut marks where they had been carefully removed from the bird. They had been polished smooth from being worn and had little notches carved into them for stringing. They had been assembled into a single piece of necklace or a bracelet. This discovery was a bombshell. Jewelry has no practical purpose for survival. It doesn't keep you warm or help you find food. It's symbolic. It communicates who you are, your status in the group, your beliefs. It's about creating meaning. And here were Neanderthals, creating and wearing jewelry tens of thousands of years before our own ancestors arrived in Europe with similar traditions. They weren't just surviving, they were building a culture. They weren't just reacting to the world, they were interpreting it. The old narrative, the comfortable story of the simple-minded brute, was collapsing. The evidence was undeniable. Neanderthals were intelligent. They were skilled engineers. They were organized hunters. They were symbolic thinkers. They were, in every meaningful sense of the word, human. But this raises an even bigger, more troubling question. If they were so capable, so much like us, then why did they disappear? To answer that, we have to look beyond their minds and their culture. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more journeys into our shared human past.